I found out my brother forged our dad's will at his funeral. I shouldn't have checked my phone that day. We'd just buried Dad. I was standing in the cemetery, tie loose around my neck, dirt still on my shoes, and my fingers trembling around a plastic cup of watered-down coffee. People were drifting off toward their cars, murmuring condolences like it made any difference. Then my cousin Max walked up. He didn't say a word, just slipped me his phone with an email open. Subject line, revised will documents. I remember the taste of bile in my mouth. The email had yesterday's date. The signature at the bottom was my dad's, except it wasn't. I knew that signature. I'd watched him sign mortgage papers, birthday cards, checks to the mechanic. This one was wrong. Off. Slanted like someone trying too hard to be casual. And the biggest red flag? In this version, everything, the house, the land, the vintage Mustang we rebuilt together, went to my brother Derek. Not split between us like Dad always said. Not even a single line about me. Max whispered, I thought you should see this before the reading. I couldn't breathe. Derek had always been the golden child. But this was a different kind of betrayal. I kept it quiet for the rest of the day. Didn't want to cause a scene in front of grieving relatives. But that night, I drove straight to the lawyer's office. Showed up the next morning before they opened. I needed to see the will myself. The lawyer, a guy named Jensen, looked confused when I asked about the date. He pulled the file. When he flipped it open, something changed in his face. That's strange, he muttered. He didn't say more, but I saw it. The flicker of doubt, the shuffle in his posture. He excused himself to make a call. I sat in that office for 45 minutes, staring at a watercolor painting of a sailboat on the wall. It felt like drowning. When Jensen came back, he was pale. Said he needed to verify some things. Asked me not to mention anything yet. Said it could jeopardize legal proceedings if I made accusations before the documents were officially reviewed. So I waited. Meanwhile, Derek started acting like a king, moving into Dad's house, tossing my old baseball trophies into storage boxes, talking about renovating the place for resale. Like the ink wasn't even dry and he was already cashing in. I played dumb, said nothing, but I documented everything. Because deep down, I knew the man who taught me how to hold a wrench, how to apologize when you're wrong, how to live with integrity. He didn't write me out of his life. And if Derek wanted a war, I wasn't just going to fight. I was going to burn his castle down, one forged brick at a time. 2 weeks later, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Jensen's assistant asked me to come in, alone. That word stuck with me. Alone. Not with family. Not with Derek. I showed up early. Same damn sailboat on the wall. Same coffee machine spitting out the same bitter sludge. Jensen came out, closed the door behind me like he was locking in a secret. He laid the will on the table. Then another. And a third. This, he said, tapping the top one, is the version we read publicly. And the others? I asked, already knowing the answer. He didn't respond directly. Just opened the second one. This is what your father signed 6 months before he died. The signature, that was Dad's. Sloppy, but real. My name was right there. 50-50 split. Everything he always promised. The third document? Jensen looked uncomfortable even opening it. Someone submitted this a day before the funeral. The signature doesn't match prior exemplars. I leaned forward. You mean it's fake? I didn't say that, he replied carefully. But I've sent it for forensic analysis. Who submitted it? I asked, even though the answer burned on my tongue. Derek, he said. He claimed your father changed his mind days before passing. I sat there, cold rage rising through my chest like a tide. Did he provide witnesses? Notarization? No, just the document. That's when it clicked. Dad had been sedated near the end, fading in and out, barely able to hold a pen. Derek must have snuck in, forged it, and bet no one would question him. Except I had. And I wasn't done. I left Jensen's office and drove straight to Dad's house. My house, now occupied by the man trying to erase me. Parked across the street, heart pounding. The porch light was on. Derek's truck in the driveway. I didn't knock. I walked right up and opened the door. Still had my old key. He looked up from the couch, beer in hand, TV blaring some sports replay. Dude, what the hell? I shut the door behind me. Calm. Cold. We need to talk. He laughed. You going to cry again? Like at the funeral? I didn't blink. I saw the will. That wiped the smirk clean off his face. He stood, beer sloshing onto the carpet. What are you talking about? The real one. The one Dad actually signed. Derek's eyes flickered. You don't know what you're saying. I stepped closer. He didn't cut me out. You did. Bullshit. You forged his signature, Derek. I know it. And now the lawyer does too. For a second, I thought he might throw the bottle. Instead, he dropped into the armchair, rubbing his face. I needed it, okay, he muttered. I lost my job. The house was getting foreclosed. I didn't have a choice. I stared at him. So you made one. He didn't answer. Couldn't. I'm not going to let you get away with this, I said. What? You going to sue me? He scoffed. I didn't answer. Just turned, walked out, and let the silence speak for itself. Because sometimes the loudest promise isn't a shout, it's a closed door. You don't realize how many people are quietly watching until you start making noise. That week, the silence around Derek cracked open like a rotten floorboard. First, it was Aunt Rachel. She called me late, almost midnight, whispering like she thought someone might be listening. I always knew something was off, she said. Your dad would have never done that to you. Then it was Dave, Dad's mechanic. He told me he was leaving the Mustang to you. Made me promise to keep it tuned. Said, my boy's the only one who knows how to drive it right. That one almost broke me. People started coming out of the woodwork, little breadcrumbs of proof that the version of reality Derek had tried to paint wasn't holding up. Every story, every voice, chipped away at the lie. But it wasn't just about convincing the family anymore. I had a plan. I started digging through Dad's old files. Boxes stacked in the storage unit, dusty and half collapsed. I found insurance paperwork, notarized signatures, even letters Dad had written to me but never sent. All of them in his handwriting. Then I did something Derek never thought I'd do. I hired a forensic document examiner. Cost me $3,000 up front. But I didn't care. If I was going to war, I needed weapons. The specialist's name was McTeague. Ex-military, blunt, no nonsense. He didn't promise results. Just facts. I sent him everything. The will Derek submitted, plus 10 verified samples of Dad's writing. A week later, I got the report. And there it was, in black and white. The question's signature displays significant deviations from known standards. In my professional opinion, the signature was not authored by the same individual. Game on. I forwarded the report to Jensen. Called him that night. Are we ready to file? There was a pause. I've spoken to the probate court, he said. There. Not surprised. We'll need to schedule a hearing. Derek still didn't know I had the report. So I made sure the next time he heard my name, it came from a courthouse clerk. The day the paperwork got served, I was sitting in a diner 2 blocks from the courthouse, watching it unfold from behind a smudged window. Derek stormed out into the street, papers crushed in his fist, face red with disbelief. He paced like a caged animal, then made a call. I couldn't hear it, but I didn't need to. 2 minutes later, my phone rang. You really did it, he hissed. You're going to drag this through court? No, I said calmly. You already did when you lied. I needed the money, he snapped. Do you even care what I was going through? You don't get to weaponize desperation, I said. You forged our dad's name. He wasn't your dad alone, Derek spat. You always acted like you were his favorite. I didn't respond to that. Because deep down, I think we both knew he was right. Dad and I had a bond Derek never got. But that wasn't my fault. It's not about favorites, I finally said. It's about what's right. He hung up. That night, I sat in the garage where Dad and I used to work on the Mustang. The place smelled like oil and old leather. I ran my fingers along the hood, remembered the first time I held a wrench, how Dad made me redo a tire change 3 times until I got it right. I could still hear his voice. Details matter, kid. So I paid attention to the details. I filed every receipt, every message, every lie Derek had told. Because when this went to court, I wasn't just going after property. I was going after truth. Let him tell his sob story. Let him cry about being left out, ignored, unloved. He made his choices, and I was about to make sure the consequences followed. Right into that courtroom. I thought winning in court would feel like justice, but it felt more like an autopsy. The hearing was set for a Monday. Probate court. Small room, no jury, just a judge who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Derek showed up in a wrinkled blazer and a forced smile. His lawyer was some guy he probably found last minute. Too slick, too casual, like he thought charm could cover up fraud. I had Jensen, buttoned up, calm, lethal with the paperwork. The judge skimmed through the initial files, asked a few questions about timeline and dates. Then came the big moment, McTeague's report. Jensen handed it over like he was sliding across a loaded gun. This is a certified forensic analysis of the signature on the will presented by Mr. Derek Owens, Jensen said. It concludes the signature was forged. The judge glanced up. Do you contest this finding, Mr. Owens? Derek's lawyer stood. We request additional time to obtain an independent review. The judge didn't flinch. Mr. Owens had that opportunity. He presented this document as legitimate. The burden is on him. Derek looked pale. For the first time, I saw something crack through the arrogance, fear. He leaned over to his lawyer, whispering fast. Then the judge looked at me. Would you like to make a statement, Mr. Owens? I stood slowly, every eye on me. I'd rehearsed a dozen versions of what I might say. But when I opened my mouth, only one thing came out. My father was not perfect, I said. But he was honest. He taught us that your word mattered, that your name mattered. And when someone tries to rewrite your story, especially when you can't defend yourself, the people who love you have to speak up. I paused. Let the silence stretch. My brother didn't just try to steal money. He tried to erase me. He tried to turn our dad's death into an opportunity. And if I hadn't said anything, he would have gotten away with it. I sat back down. The judge nodded, then looked at Derek. You're lucky this is civil court, she said flatly. Had this been criminal, the outcome might be very different. She ruled the original will, the real will, as valid. Derek's submission was officially declared fraudulent. I didn't look at him as we walked out. Because some defeats don't need gloating. They just need to echo. Outside, the air was thick with rain. Not falling yet, just threatening. Jensen shook my hand, said he'd follow up about formal paperwork. Then he was gone. I stood there for a long time, watching people move past the courthouse, watching my brother sit on a bench, head in his hands. For a second, just a second, I felt sorry for him. Then I remembered how he tossed our childhood into a shredder for a fast payout. I walked away. The fallout came quick. Word spread through the family. Cousins, aunts, old neighbors. Some defended him, said grief makes people desperate. Others cut him off entirely. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a folded note, scrawled in Derek's handwriting. I messed up. I know I don't deserve anything. But I just wanted you to know, it wasn't about Dad. It was about always being second. I couldn't take it anymore. No apology. No ownership. Just a confession of bitterness. I didn't write back. Instead, I drove out to Dad's place. It was mine now, legally, emotionally, spiritually. But it didn't feel like it yet. The garage was cold. Dusty. The Mustang sat under a tarp like a sleeping animal. I pulled it off. Ran my hand across the hood. Then I opened the drawer where Dad used to keep the keys. There they were, hanging like he'd left them just for me. I slid into the driver's seat. Turned the key. The engine roared to life. And for the first time in a long, long while, I remembered how it felt to move forward. Grief doesn't end when the gavel falls. It just changes shape. I thought winning in court would give me closure. It didn't. It gave me paperwork, signatures, and a half-empty house that didn't know how to feel like home yet. I started sleeping on the couch, like I was visiting my own past. The bed upstairs felt too clean, too final, like Dad's ghost was still tucked into the corners. Everywhere I turned, there were echoes. His boots by the door. That old wall calendar still turned to the month he passed. Even his favorite mug, chipped, faded, coffee-stained, still sat in the dish rack like he'd be back in 5. I couldn't throw anything away. I just moved it around. Rearranged grief. One night, I found myself in the attic. Don't know what pulled me up there, maybe the silence, maybe the weight in my chest that wouldn't let me sleep. I started digging through old boxes, half hoping for some forgotten photo or letter that would tell me who he really was. Instead, I found a locked metal box. I almost didn't open it. But something in me, that same voice that told me to challenge the will, said do it. Inside were documents, letters, and one worn, yellowing folder labeled for after. My hands went cold. I opened it. Inside were instructions, written in Dad's messy, all-caps scrawl. If you're reading this, I'm gone. Don't let Derek walk over you. He's always been charming, but charm don't make a man. Integrity does. My throat closed. I love both of you, but I'm not blind. You showed up when I needed help. You changed my bandages. You changed the oil. You didn't ask for anything. That's why the will is what it is. It was dated 6 months before he died. There was more. Forgive him if you can, but don't forget. And don't let him steal your light to fix his shadow. That line knocked the wind out of me. I sat in that attic for what felt like hours, reading and rereading, until I knew those words like scripture. There was something both cruel and comforting about it, hearing Dad's voice again, after so much silence. I took the folder downstairs, put it on the table, didn't hide it, didn't lock it away. If Derek ever came back, I wanted him to see it. A few days later, he did. He pulled up in a beat-up sedan. No truck, no swagger, just a man who looked like he'd lost the script. I met him on the porch, didn't invite him in. He nodded toward the house. Mind if I do, I said. He sighed. I'm not here to fight. I crossed my arms. Then why are you here? To say I'm sorry. I didn't answer, just stared at him. He shifted on his feet. Look, I messed up. I was broke, angry. I thought Dad loved you more, and maybe he did, I don't know. But I made it worse. I lied. I betrayed you. I get it. Still, I didn't say a word. He finally looked up, eyes raw. I just needed you to hear it. That's when I said the one thing I hadn't said yet. I believe you. He blinked. You do? Yeah, I said. But believing you doesn't mean I trust you. He nodded. Fair. We stood there a minute more. Then he turned and walked back to his car. Drove off. No big scene. No tears. Just two broken brothers trying to live with the wreckage. I went inside. Sat at Dad's table. Looked at that old Mustang, keys still sitting in the dish. And for the first time, I felt something crack open inside me. Not closure. Not peace. But space. And sometimes, that's the best you get when the storm clears. The strange thing about grief is how it keeps showing up. Not like a storm, but like a shadow. I thought once the will was settled, the house would feel like mine. But it didn't. It felt like a museum. A place where everything had meaning and nothing could be touched. I kept going to the garage. Every night after work, I'd sit next to the Mustang like it was an old friend who'd been through war with me. I didn't drive it, not yet. I just listened to the quiet. One night, around midnight, I finally popped the hood. Just to see. Dust, age, memory. But still solid. Like Dad. I checked the oil, tightened a few bolts, ran my hands along the same parts he once showed me how to replace. And then I found something wedged near the back. A folded envelope, yellowed with time, tucked into the corner under the lining. I pulled it out, heart racing. It was addressed to both of us. Derek and me. Inside was a photo. The three of us standing by the Mustang the summer we rebuilt it. I must have been 16. Derek 21. Dad right in the middle, arms around us like we were the whole damn world. On the back, Dad had scribbled something in pen. This car was never about the car. It was about building something together. If you're holding this, remember, family's like an engine. It only runs when each part pulls its weight. I sat back and exhaled. Hard. Because even in death, the man had a way of hitting you right where it hurt, and somehow healing it at the same time. The next day, I scanned the photo, printed a copy, and mailed it to Derek. No note. No message. Just the image. Let him sit with it. That weekend, I started clearing the shed behind the garage. It was a mess. Rusted tools, broken lawn chairs, half-empty paint cans. But buried in the back was something unexpected. 2 old toolboxes. One had my name scratched into the lid. The other? Derek's. Both filled with parts. Bolts. Handwritten instructions. It was like Dad had prepared for this exact moment. Like he knew we'd each need our own way forward. I set mine on the workbench. Ran my fingers over the rough metal. And for the first time, I got it. This wasn't just about a car. Or a house. Or a will. It was about legacy. About who shows up. Who carries the load. Who leaves behind something more than resentment and silence. That night, I drove the Mustang. Not far. Just a few laps around the old back roads Dad used to take when he wanted to clear his head. The engine purred like a memory. Whined through the windows. Road humming beneath me. I wasn't trying to outrun anything. I was finally letting it catch up. When I pulled back into the driveway, the porch light flicked on. And for the first time since all this began, I didn't feel like a visitor in my own life. I felt home. Not because it was perfect. Not because it was peaceful. But because I'd earned every square inch of it. And I knew, wherever Dad was, he'd be proud of that. Some ghosts don't haunt you. They guide you. That thought hit me the following weekend, when I finally cracked open the garage cabinet Dad always kept locked. I'd never touched it. Not once. It felt off-limits, sacred. But that day, something nudged me. Call it curiosity. Call it healing. I grabbed the crowbar, popped the latch, and braced myself. Inside were rows of binders. Organized. Labeled. Years of receipts, maintenance logs, warranties, and letters. And in the center, a brown envelope with just one word, read. I sat on the concrete floor, legs crossed like a kid, and opened it. There were 3 letters inside. One for me. One for Derek. One for both of us. Mine was short. Direct. Dad's voice leapt off the page. You were always the steady one. The anchor. I leaned on you more than I ever said. I saw the way you took care of things. Of me. Of this house. Of your brother. Even when it hurt. Even when no one saw it. I wiped my eyes. Kept reading. Don't let bitterness rot your ribs. Let it pass. I know you want to fight for what's right. Do that. But then build something from the ashes. Don't live in them. I sat there until the sun started bleeding through the garage windows. Then I made a decision. I took Derek's letter, resealed it in a new envelope, and drove across town. He was living in a small apartment now, working construction jobs, staying quiet. When he opened the door, he looked surprised. Hey, he said. No sarcasm. Just tired honesty. Dad left this for you, I said, handing over the envelope. He held it like it weighed 100 pounds. I don't know if you deserve it, I added. But he wrote it anyway. He nodded. Thanks. I turned to leave. But then, wait. I paused. Derek swallowed hard. Do you ever think? Maybe I screwed things up beyond fixing? I looked at him for a long time. That same face from the Mustang photo, older now, worn down. Yeah, I said. But broken doesn't mean done. It just means different. He nodded again. Didn't try to hug me. Didn't cry. Just stood there with the letter. I walked away. Back home, I took out the 3rd letter. The one meant for both of us. I didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, I pinned it to the corkboard above the workbench. Let it sit there. Let it wait. Maybe one day, when we're both ready, we'll read it together. For now, it's enough that it exists. That Dad believed in a future where we might not be at war. And maybe, just maybe, that's the start of peace. Not forgiveness. Not forgetfulness. But the space between the two, where healing can finally breathe. Grief comes in waves, but healing, that's a slow tide. And sometimes you don't realize you've started to float until you stop drowning. It had been weeks since the court ruled in my favor. Since Derek drove off without looking back. Since I sat in the driver's seat of the Mustang and turned the key like I was asking permission to move on. The house had stopped feeling haunted, but it still didn't feel alive. I was sitting on the back porch one evening, watching the last of the light bleed through the trees, when I heard a car roll up. It wasn't Derek. It was Max, my cousin, the one who first tipped me off about the forged email. He didn't call ahead, just parked, got out, and walked over with a beer in each hand like we'd done this 100 times before. You fixing up the shed or just letting it rot with style? He asked, nodding toward the leaning frame beside the garage. I smiled. Bit of both. We sat in silence for a while, drinking, watching the sky turn deep blue. Then Max leaned back. You think he'll come back? I didn't answer right away. He already did. Once. He turned to me. And he said he was sorry. I said I believed him, but I didn't let him in. That's fair. Is it? I asked. I mean, how much do you owe someone who tried to erase you? Max didn't speak for a long moment. Then, maybe not forgiveness, but maybe a chance to change the ending. That stuck with me. After he left, I wandered into the garage. Still smelled like oil and dust and memory. I pulled down one of the old cabinets and found something tucked in the back, a thick, sealed envelope labeled in Dad's handwriting, for after. My chest tightened. I opened it. Inside were 3 letters. One to me, one to Derek, and one marked together. I read mine first. You were always the one with both feet on the ground, Dad had written. Even when I was losing mine. I didn't say it enough, but I trusted you. Not just to handle things, but to stay whole. Even when it felt easier to break. I sat on the cold floor, the letter shaking in my hands. There was a photo tucked in, too. Me, Derek, and Dad standing beside the Mustang. All grease and sunburn and stupid smiles. On the back, Dad had scribbled. This car was never about speed. It was about building something together. If you're holding this, maybe it's time to start again. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I took Derek's letter, sealed it in a new envelope, and the next morning, I drove across town to the crumbling apartment building he'd moved into. When he opened the door, his eyes went wide. Hey, I said. Didn't think I'd see you again, he replied. I handed him the envelope. Dad left this for you. Back in the garage. He looked down at it like it might explode. You read yours? He asked. I nodded. He took a breath. Was it good? It was real. He nodded. Thanks. I turned to leave, but he stopped me. Wait. Do you want to read the third one? Together? I looked at him, really looked at him. And I saw it. Not just guilt. Not just shame. But effort. Real, heavy effort. Not today, I said. But maybe soon. He didn't argue. Just nodded. Yeah. Okay. As I walked away, I realized something. Maybe legacy isn't about what you inherit. Maybe it's about what you're finally ready to build. It took me a week to open the garage again. Not because I was afraid, but because something had shifted. It didn't feel like a crypt anymore. It felt like a choice. I pushed the doors open on a cloudy Saturday morning. The air smelled like rain and rust. I turned on the overhead light. It buzzed, flickered, then steadied. The Mustang sat there like it had always been waiting. Still covered in dust, but solid. Familiar. I didn't start it. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out the folder labeled Title and Docs that Dad had kept in his filing cabinet. Inside was everything. Ownership papers, insurance, even a half-written note about upgrades he never got around to. On the back of one page was a scribble. Give her to the one who kept her alive. My name wasn't there, but it didn't have to be. That afternoon, I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. Replaced the spark plugs. Checked the oil. Cleaned out the old filter. Every move felt like a conversation. A memory in motion. The workbench was cluttered, so I started reorganizing. And that's when I found the envelope Derek had mailed back. No message. Just his tools. But on one of the wrenches, scratched into the metal, were two words. I remember. It knocked something loose in me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But recognition. Like some part of him had been watching all along. That evening, I took the car out for a drive. The sky was bruised purple. Rain on the edge. I didn't blast music or call anyone. Just drove the back roads, past the fields, past the diner, past the old high school parking lot where we used to sneak beers and talk about getting out of this town. The engine ran like it remembered who it belonged to. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was chasing ghosts. I felt like I was showing them I was still here. When I got back, I parked the Mustang under the new motion light I'd installed. The shed leaned a little less now. Max had helped me reinforce the foundation last week. We didn't talk much during it. We didn't have to. Sometimes the work speaks louder than words. I opened a beer and sat on the porch. Felt the ache in my back, the dirt in my hands. That's when my phone buzzed. It was Derek. A photo, him standing in front of a different garage. Clean. Empty. Except for a single framed photo on the wall. Us. The Mustang. And Dad. His text read, "Making space." No emojis. No explanation. Just that. I stared at the screen a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I replied, "Looks good. You should come see the car." No response. But that wasn't the point. I wasn't asking for reconciliation. I was making room. And that, maybe more than forgiveness, is how you begin again. You don't notice peace when it arrives. It doesn't kick down the door. It slips in through the cracks while you're busy fixing what's left. It was 2 weeks after Derek's message. The house felt lighter. Or maybe I did. I'd hung the Mustang photo in the hallway. Not to honor the past, but to anchor the present. Then one Friday evening, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it. Derek stood there. Jeans dusty, jacket wrinkled, a six-pack in one hand. The same brand Dad used to drink. He didn't speak. I stepped aside. "You coming in or just holding the porch hostage?" He let out a small laugh. "That's the welcome? It's the one you earned." He walked in, slowly, like the house might spit him back out. I motioned to the kitchen table. We sat. He opened a beer, pushed one toward me. I passed. We sat in the quiet hum of the old refrigerator, the air thick with unsaid things. "I read Dad's letter," he said. I nodded. Waited. "He knew," Derek said. "He knew I was going to screw things up. Maybe, but he still left you words." "Yeah." He took a breath. "I don't want to fight over what's gone. He trailed off. "You want to help build what's left," I said. He nodded. I stood up, walked to the workbench near the garage door, pulled open the top drawer. Inside, the third letter, the one labeled Together. I placed it on the table between us. "You sure?" he asked. "Nope," I said. "But let's find out." We opened it. Dad's handwriting was shaky. "If you're reading this together, You've already done more than I ever managed. I spent too much time choosing sides. Too much time expecting you to carry the weight I didn't teach you how to hold. That's on me. I glanced at Derek. His jaw was tight, eyes wet. This house, this car, it was never about inheritance. It was about investment. In you. In what you could be together. I don't need you to forgive each other. I just need you to show up. We didn't speak. Just sat with it. After a long while, Derek cleared his throat. I've been looking at shops, he said. Small garage. Might take on some rebuilds. You think, maybe you could help? I stared at him. He looked older now. Not broken. Just finally done pretending. Let's start with this place, I said. Still some things to fix. He nodded. Yeah. Okay. We didn't hug. Didn't toast. We just got to work. That night, I stood on the porch as Derek drove away. The air was cool. The house quiet. But not empty. In the garage, the Mustang sat under soft light. Still running. Still waiting. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you learn to carry together. And sometimes, the rebuild is the redemption.